Being productive, a state at which every entrepreneur that I've ever met in my lifetime wants to achieve. Now, there's a difference here between being productive and being efficient. And in this video, I want to show you 3 key things that have allowed me to scale my business to multi-7 figures a year, all at the age of 19. And I do owe it to one thing, and that's being productive, but more importantly, being efficient. Now, one thing that you need to understand is whenever you think of the word productive, you might immediately think somebody that gets a ton done, that's super efficient, and is just an unstoppable force that moves faster than everybody else around them. Have you ever actually took the time to look at what the definition of being productive actually is? And if not, I would encourage you to do so, which I've already saved you the time. Being productive simply means getting a lot done. You have a to-do list, you get it done, we would classify you under the bucket of being productive. If you have a to-do list that never gets done and you continue to put off the things that are actually going to move the needle, well, we would classify you under the bucket of being unproductive, being lazy, and not doing the things that are going to ultimately get you closer towards your goal. Now, most people think that being productive is the goal, but I can be productive and get all the things done on my to-do list by working 15 hours a day, 15 hours a day, barely sleeping and just abusing stimulants to get through the day. But that's not being efficient. What you should aim to be is not only productive, but efficient, because the definition of efficiency is getting more out for what you put in. This is otherwise known as a term called creating leverage. An example of leverage would be, I might do 10 sales calls and sign 5 clients because I'm really good at sales. But somebody else who isn't equally as skilled at sales might then take those same 10 sales calls, which might take them the same 10 hours, but they might only sign 2 clients. And the only difference there is leverage. I get more out for what I put in because of skill. And you usually need to make up for what you don't have in skill in input, in work, until you can then in turn create that skill. One of the most common misconceptions that I see around being productive and getting a lot of shit done is the difference between successful and non-successful people is having goals. And if that was the case, then the thousands of entrepreneurs that I've met over the span of the last 3 or 4 years being in the online business game would all be making a shit ton of money. Having goals is not what separates people that are productive and unproductive, or the people that make a lot of money and the people that don't. It's 3 core things that I want to show you today, which is condensing your goals into micro actions, being able to take a big grandiose goal and breaking it down into what can I do day to day to achieve this goal that's ultimately going to create my luck and make me productive. The second thing I found is focus. Having the ability to say no to all the things that don't put you close towards your goal and saying yes to everything that does put you close towards your goal. In other words, focusing on the things that actually move the needle forward. For me in my business, I call these revenue-driven actions, and it's what majority of my calendar is blocked out to focus on throughout every single day, because the only thing that matters is revenue-driven actions, when the reality is most people have it completely arse backwards. They focus 80% of their time on being reactive, focusing on things that are going to keep them where they're at, keep them stuck, responding to messages in Slack, checking email, taking calls, and very little time on the things that are proactive in driving revenue into the business, getting them in better shape, whatever your goal may be. And the third thing, which is pretty unspoken about, is using tech, leveraging AI, leveraging your computer to your advantage to be more efficient. And there's a number of things that I want to show you in this video that I do that I haven't seen anybody else do. So the first thing that I want to break down for you is how you actually break these big goals that you have in your mind that you probably want to achieve into micro day-to-day actions that are actually going to move the needle forward. I know from first-hand experience, which I'll pop some videos on the screen, of over the span of the last 3 or 4 years, I've documented everything from going from 0 to running now a $4 to $5 million a year business. And the biggest thing that allowed me to do that in the span of the last 2 or 3 years was having an ability to take this big goal that most people think is the be-all and end-all that's going to make you a lot of money and it's going to help you achieve that goal, and breaking it down into day-to-day actions. And again, this all comes down to a term that I label as reverse engineering your goals. If you can take your goal of making $1 million a year and turn it into, what am I going to do aligned with this goal this year, this quarter, this month, this week, today, this hour, this second, it makes that goal way easier to attain, because you know that at all times you're acting in congruency and alignment with that goal. Now, to give you an example of the way that I do this, because I'm a very systems and operations driven person, as you've probably figured if you see my other videos, is I templatize my planning for my year, my quarter, my month, my week, my days. To give you an example of this for the year, which I did most recently at the start of 2025, is I will go through and I'll block out an entire day. I'll reflect on the year, on what went well, what did I learn, what didn't go well. I'll then set my yearly high-level goals. What are the 4 big challenges, character building events, spontaneous trips, life-changing events? One of those for me, as an example this year, was to get a six-pack in the health side of my life. And the second one was to get to $500,000 a month in my business, or achieve a revenue milestone that meant I was on track to do $6 million a year. They were my 2 main goals in the 2 main focuses of my life. And one thing that people don't think about as well is you can't grow in all of those divisions of your life at one time. Ty Lopez has a really good way of breaking this down. He says there's 5 pillars of a good life. You've got health, wealth, love, relationships, and happiness. And I fell victim to this, as with a lot of other people too, where you think that you can set these huge goals in such a short time frame for every single division of my life. To give you an example of this for me, I had, at the start of this year, health, I wanted to get a six-pack. Wealth, I wanted to get to $500K a month. Love, I wanted to find the person that I was going to eventually marry. And then relationships and happiness, I was going to do all of these things and move to Bali and live on a beach and barely work. Well, the reality is I had conflicting interests in my goals, which again is something that a lot of people never talk about. And I'm a victim of this too. I never really thought about it either. That some of the goals that I had that I originally set at the start of the year had conflicting interest. If I wanted to take my business from doing $200,000 a month to $500,000 a month, I'm going to have to sacrifice other divisions of my life in order to get that goal. In which me being ignorant to think that I was going to be able to only work 2 hours a day on my computer and also find a potential partner for me to settle down with in years to come and also get a six-pack is just very unrealistic. And again, I'm all for setting big, ambiguous goals that scare the shit out of you, but simply put, you also need to ground yourself in reality sometimes. So here's the first thing that I'll do. I'll set these big grandiose goals, but the most important thing is then getting those goals and turning them into micro actions. So then what I do as an example is I will read every week my yearly goals. I'll then break them down into quarterly goals. I do this in the business. I also do this in my personal life. So you can see here for the business, if we get into the more business orientated side of things, I'll go over lessons learned, mistakes made, who was fired and why. I'll put in all of the numbers that I want to achieve in the business, from MRR, churn, new clients, any client KPIs, because for context, I run a marketing agency as well as a licensing program for other agencies to essentially license my systems. And I had specific goals and targets for each domain of that, from client operations, success, client marketing, our call center team, and then as well an overall reflection on who we need to hire, fire, what's the main focus, what do we need to eliminate, and what is our team going to look like at the end of this quarter. But then I don't stop there. I will then continue to go all the way down to monthly, weekly, and daily. So, for example, on the monthly side of things, what I will then do is I will go in and I will set goals in each division of my life for each month, from health, wealth, love, relationships, happiness, in each division of my life. Number 1, for last month, which goals did I set that I completed? Which goals did I not complete, if any? And what was the reason why I didn't complete that goal? So then I have to logically think about the reason why I set that goal and I didn't hit it. Again, an example of that would be for last month, I thought that I was going to go from 69 kilograms in weight to 65 kilograms in weight in the span of a month. And realistically speaking, I overestimated that goal. Even though I moved towards my goal, I got down to 67.5. I lost 1.5 kilograms in the span of a month. I didn't get to my 65 kilogram goal, simply put, because the goal was too unrealistic. Now, if I was only focusing on that goal and I wasn't also focusing on serving my clients in the agency, serving my clients in License and Scale, I might have been able to do that if I was on a treadmill for 2-3 hours a day, but simply put, I didn't have the time to do that. So it's important that when you set these goals and you break them down into the micro, which, by the way, this lesson usually comes from just learning and figuring out, oh shit, I was way too unrealistic with these goals. It's important that you make sure that you don't have conflicting goals and the goals are actually sustainable. And then, more importantly, if we go even granular than that, I will then go to the weekly, where the way that I plan my week is I segment them into A's, B's, C's, and D's. So A's are always my 3 big rocks. What are the 3 big rocks that are the highest revenue-driven actions in that week that I want to get done? So for me, for example, right now, one of those for me, which is going to push the needle forward in my business, is recording a video like this. Another one is building out new training material and modules for the people inside of License and Scale. And a third one that I really wanted to focus on last week as an example, which was congruent with my $500,000 a month goal, was optimizing our paid ads, taking calls with our sales team, and we can make sure that they are sitting at a consistent 30% close rate. So again, very simple. Point number 1 is getting your big goals and breaking them down. Call it chunking down goals. So if your goal right now is you want to build a $100,000 a month business and you're sitting at $50,000 a month, you have to ask yourself, what is the number 1 constraint that's holding you back from hitting that? And if you were to do the inverse, which this is a really good way of setting goals, if you were to blow your business up and completely fail, what would you do? And you just simply invert those goals. I believe this quote came from Charlie Munger. I could be wrong, but he mentions a quote. He always references this in books that he's made, videos that he's in. Invert always inverts. And that means that the human mind is much better at finding things that are wrong than it is at finding things that are right. So whenever I'm setting a goal and I'm trying to chunk that goal down into what do I need to do this week, today, this hour, this second, I will always ask, what are the things that I should do right now that would almost guarantee that I will never hit this goal? And I'll just simply invert them. So if my goal is to go from 67.5 kilograms to 65 kilograms and get a six pack, the things that I would not do that would guarantee that I wouldn't hit that goal is I'm not going to follow my nutrition plan. I'm not going to track my macros. I'm not going to do any cardio. I'm not going to work out every day. I just invert that. And then I just follow through with those actions. And that's my North Star for that day, for that week, in order to achieve that goal. Now, if you want to go even more granular than this, one thing that I also do at the end of every day is I reflect on the day and see, did the things that I do align with my monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals in each domain of my life? So as you can see on the screen here, at the end of each day, I go in and fill this out. And for context, I've been doing this for years. I'm going to blur this out for obvious purposes. But if I just scroll up as an example, you'll be able to see that I've been doing this almost for the most part of the whole of 2025, as well as on this habit tracker too, where I've been tracking my weight, reading my vision, taking my supplements, and doing all of my day-to-day tasks since the end of 2024. And by the way, I've been doing this for way longer than that. This is just with this habit tracker because I usually update them each and every year and make a new tracker. My point being, a couple of things that I go over is the first thing is reflection. What's my daily intention that aligns with my goal? What bad habits did I slip up on today I'll improve tomorrow? Misaligned with my goals. Wake up time, logging off time, sleep time. And for me, because health is a very, very important part of my life and it's ultimately the foundation of every other goal that I'll ever set, I'll track my diet on a scale of 1 to 10. Did I go with no sugar or shit food? Did I hit my cardio on a scale of 1 to 10? How good? Workout quality? Did I log my calories? How many calories did I consume, burn, and am I operating in a caloric deficit? Because for me right now, my goal is to lose weight and have visible abs. And then energy and focus. How do I feel? How is my mental, emotional, and physical state throughout the day? Is there anything that I need to change if this is below a 6 or a 7? And then as well, my wealth goals. How many new units have I signed in my business in terms of new clients for both businesses? How much new cash? How much revenue month to date in both businesses? And then finally, I will plan the day for tomorrow. This is very, very important. At the end of each day, I will go in and look at my weekly goals and create a to-do list for the next day in alignment with my weekly goals. And then what I will do is I will plan those tasks in the calendar and then I will segment them into 2 core buckets. I segment my tasks into signal tasks, which are the things that are getting me closer to $1 million a month, which is 80% of my to-do list every day. And then noise tasks. Noise tasks are just things that need to be done that maintain my current level, but if I don't get them done, it's not the end of the world. It is not the revenue-driven action or needle-moving action in that domain of my life that is going to get me closer towards that goal. If anything, it's just keeping me where I'm at, but sometimes those things need to be done. Like every now and again, I need to respond to my team. I need to check my email every now and again if there's an important email I need to respond to. However, I want to limit those things and keep a very, very small, finite amount of my time on those things so I can allocate majority, 80% of my time on the signal tasks, the things that are going to get me closer towards my goal. And again, this all ties into the second point that I mentioned at the start of the video, which is focus. You need to have a relentless ability to say no to all of the things that do not push you towards your goals. And one thing that most people don't talk about is this can be really fucking lonely and it can be really hard. The hardest things to say no to are usually the things that you should say no to. I had an opportunity come up a couple of weeks ago where I could have gone to Bali. I'm in Dubai right now. That's where I'm situated over the span of the next 3 months. I've made the commitment to myself that this is where I'm going to lock in. I had the opportunity to go to Bali for the first time, travel there, experience it. But I know that going there not only is going to mess with my sleep schedule, my routine, and my ability to lock in, because I'm pretty locked in here and I obviously have a place here that I can stay and I have an office room and things like that. But if I go there, it's going to fuck with my time zone. I'm going to get distracted. Bali's a beautiful place. There's so much to do there. There's a time and a place for that. But with the season of life that I'm in right now and the goals that I have, I looked at that opportunity of experiencing that and I thought, does this align with the goals that I have in my life right now? And the answer is no. So although I did really want to go and I did really want to experience that place, which I absolutely will in the next 6 to 12 months, right now isn't the right time to do that. And this is where most people slip up. They think the minute that they hit a problem in their business, the minute they have an opportunity that arises, the minute they get excited about something, they don't look at it through the lens of, does this align with my goals? And if I do this thing, is it going to have a negative impact on achieving my goals? So you must have a relentless ability to say no to the things that don't matter and say yes to the things that do. And then the third and final thing that I would say has probably had the biggest impact on me, because to be clear, if you have the focus, if you have the goals, that's great. But I know a lot of people that have those things, that work towards their goals, but just are extremely slow. And this is where efficiency comes in. Now, there's a couple of things that I break down to be my best efficiency hack that allow me to get a lot more done without putting more in. Even though I work, 12 to 13 hours a day most days, purely by choice, I don't necessarily have to. For context, my business this month made me 200K in profit. I don't necessarily need to work 12 hours a day. I just love it. And I get a fire out of growing and developing and becoming the man that I want to become, and also inspiring other people to do the same thing too. But there's a couple of things that I would recommend to everybody here that have allowed me to do that. First one is computer speed. Now, whenever a new MacBook comes out, the first thing I immediately do is I buy it. Regardless. I had a 2023 MacBook a couple of months ago. It was about $3,000, $4,000. It was the best spec one. However, I was walking around an Apple store and I saw another MacBook that was I believe it was the 2024. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to get it just to prove my statement. I've seen every time that I move from one older MacBook to the newer MacBook, I have at least a 1.5x productivity boost. And to give you some context, when I first started my agency about 3 years ago, I was doing cold outreach on a fucking Chromebook. And when I went from a Chromebook to a MacBook Air, I must have had at least a 10x productivity boost. So rule of thumb here is, if you have some money, don't skimp on the things that are going to make you more efficient. Same with team members as well. I see a lot of people trying to hold on to all of their profit and penny pinch it. And this sounds hypocritical coming from somebody that makes a lot of profit, but I still also have a pretty big team that runs a lot of things for me. The way that I see me hiring somebody, investing in something is, if it buys back my time and it costs me less than my cost per hour, it is worth the investment. One of the best hires that I made to help with this was hiring a personal assistant that can organize me getting haircuts, getting my clothes cleaned, getting my house cleaned, ordering new things, checking my email, responding on behalf of me to my clients and my team and things like that. And that cost me a couple of $1,000s a month, and it was the best hire that I've ever made. Because if my cost per hour in the business right now is a minimum of $5,000 an hour, I know that if I hire that person, it's going to allow me to buy back another 10 to 20 hours of my time every single week, which, if we do the math on that, is an insane amount of money in comparison to the measly $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month that I'm going to spend in having that person come onto the team, train them, and do those things. So computer speed, hiring a personal assistant, and ultimately being relentless in auditing my time and seeing what can I delegate, eliminate, and automate. A couple of other things would be mouse speed. Mouse speed is a big one. If you're not on the maximum mouse speed, stop being a bitch and just put it on, okay? Yes, it will be a pain in the ass at first, but I can tell you, when I moved to maximum mouse speed, my efficiency, again, probably went from a 1 to a 1.5x immediately over the span of a week of getting used to it. Another thing is using templated texts. So if you send the same text to the same people on a frequent basis, templatize those things. I use a tool called Typinator that allows me to do this. So anytime that I need to send a templated message to anyone, I just have a template for it. For example, when I'm going and booking a meeting with somebody, instead of me going to them and just going, oh yeah, you can book here, and trying to scramble around to find my booking link, I just put book, command, and it sends them a template message. If I'm getting on a Zoom with somebody, instead of me scrambling around creating a Zoom, I have a pre-made Zoom link that I click Zoom command and it sends them a Zoom link. Small little things like this. Another one, for example, when I'm requesting a review from somebody in one of my programs, I will, instead of just sending them the same message I would send everybody else, I will just send them the rev pitch, which is me asking, hey, how have you found the program? Would you mind leaving a review? So templatize the same messages that you send to the same people on a frequent basis, because it will save you so much time. And that ties me into my next point, which all of the most common resources that you use on a day-to-day basis in one centralized place. I use this Chrome extension called Tab Extend, and it helps me tremendously. You'll see on my Chrome browser here, I have all of the most common links that I will use on a day-to-day basis. And I just simply need to open a new browser and all of my links are there ready to go. And you can use a tool called Tab Extend. Another one is Zapper or Snapper, one of the two, which allows me to immediately take screenshots. If you are on a MacBook, and you know what I mean by it's kind of a pain in the ass to take a screenshot. You click Command 4, you screenshot, and then you have to click on it, and then I have to go into the pen, and then I have to draw on it and rubber it out. I use this Snapper tool, and it immediately copies and pastes, and I can actually immediately just pull it up on the screen and add an arrow or annotate or anything like that. So I can just go here, go like this, add it there, save it, and I'm done. That's another prime example of, again, these small efficiency hacks that make me way more productive over time. Another one is whisper. I barely type anymore. I use voice to text with everything that I do. So just to give you an example of this, I have this on my Chrome extension or Chrome browser where, let's say I'm sending a message to somebody, sending something, I just click FN and speak, and it will immediately put that on whatever platform that I choose to use. So an example of that is the following. I literally just said that and it's gone in here with 100% accuracy, or it's like 95% accurate. A couple of other ones, Alfred. This one's great for just like searching things, pretty much a little bit better than the MacBook one. Beeper puts all of my text in one place, from Instagram to WhatsApp to Slack, just so I'm not fucking around on so many different platforms. Loom for recording videos like this one, and then Loom for creating videos like this one. Now, the most important one that I didn't mention here is the way that you set up your calendar and using AI to create leverage and make yourself more efficient as well. So the way that I set up my calendar is I batch all of my admin work together, because I've seen, and I used to fall into this trap where the minute that I would wake up, I would immediately be in reactive mode. I'd be checking Slack, I'd be checking email, I'd be checking messages, and it's very hard once you're in this reactive state, checking everything and doing the admin, you're immediately in the noise mode. That 20% of things that are gonna help a little bit, but they're not revenue-driven actions that are gonna push you forward in that domain of your life, I would focus majority of my time on that. And that's what most people do, and that's the reason they don't grow at the speed that they want to. So now I've made a hard rule for myself that I batch all of my admin in an hour a day. And it's just before I take calls at around 8 a.m. Eastern time. Because I'm in Dubai, that means I've got 6 or 7 hours before that to focus on strictly revenue-driven actions that are gonna move the needle forward for me. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Start batching your calls together. For me, for example, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I do all of my calls. Tuesdays, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, bar the calls that I do inside of a License and Scale. We host a weekly masterclass in there where I go over a specific topic or answer questions. I don't take any calls, which means I've got the full day blocked to focus on revenue-driven actions. And this applies with having calls as well. If you have calls spread out across your whole calendar, that can be a big problem, because if you have a call at 2 p.m. and then there's a big block between 2 to 6, that 4-hour block, you're probably not doing much productive. If you have a no-show for 45, 60 minutes, if somebody reschedules on you, it's very hard to go into a proactive, revenue-driven action state where you can go into deep work and actually get shit done. Critical thinking tasks that are going to move the needle forward and affect the entire trajectory of your life, your business, your health, whatever it is you're focusing on. So I encourage you to batch your calls on specific days. Have them one after another with a 15-minute block in between, so you can have full days knowing that you don't need to worry about when the next call is, because that's always on the top of your mind if you have a big block between one call to the next. Now, the final thing, as mentioned, is how I use AI to make myself more efficient. I don't see enough people using AI at the level that they can. And the way that I do this is I use a tool like Manus, ChatGPT, Poppy AI. To be frank with you, they're all the same. But I have specific agents built for specific things. For example, this is an example of one that I've got for marketing. So instead of me having to manually write out ad copy, write out video scripts, ideate new video ads that I'm going to create, or write out a new VSL, I've trained an AI agent on being able to do those things, in which, by the way, these templates are all in License and Scale for the people that are watching this in there. You already know that. But point being, leverage AI to make yourself more efficient. So again, for me, I've trained this agent on all of my social proof, who I serve, how I serve them, the most common objections, questions, and expectations we get, how I speak, based on training it on my YouTube videos, example VSLs, how to make ad copy with examples. So over time, I now can just go into this and get it to script out ad copy for me without having to waste time. It already knows how to do it. I also have one of these for giving me life therapy. Anytime that I have a call where I think about my goals, or I'm planning out goals, or I'm reflecting on the week, it all goes in my life therapy AI. So instead of me having to think critically for a long period of time about doing a task or thinking about something, I can just ask the AI that is going to give me a rational, no bullshit approach. A rational, no bullshit response right away. So if you're not leveraging AI at this level, I would encourage you to. I see so many people that are just using ChatGPT and making a new chat every time they speak to it. Have an agent in ChatGPT, in Manus, in Poppy, whatever tool you want to use, that is trained for a specific purpose that you constantly improve and upload new resources to, so it can make you more and more efficient every time you come back to that task. Because the minute I now have a marketing task, I need to think about something critically in my life and an overall directional pivot change in my business. Whatever it may be, I have an agent already trained on it. so I'm not having to retrain a new ChatGPT chat every time that I go to use it. To summarize, I know that was a lot that we've gone over, but these are the 3 core things that have allowed me to scale my business to multi-7 figures a year, and are what's going to get me to $1 million a month in the next 12 months. That's my ultimate goal, and I will achieve it, simply put, because I focus on those 3 things: chunking down my goals, staying focused, and being efficient by leveraging tech and AI. And by chance, if you do want to learn more about how I could potentially help you scale and grow your agency, I do have a link below. You can book in a call with our team and see if it's a good fit.